Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Frederick Winsness, and I'm with NetHope and NetHope Solutions Center. I'm very pleased to welcome everyone today to yet another webinar in the No Loss Generation Tech Task Force webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking both in Mercy Corps and Adobe about their Adobe Project 1324 challenge. And how to expand participation for conflict-affected youth. And before we introduce the speakers, I want to go over the normal housekeeping rules. We're going to make this as interactive as possible, so please line up your questions in the chat window throughout the presentation, and we will do a facilitated Q&A session towards the end. We are also recording this, and we will be posting both the recording and the slides on the NetHope Solutions Center later on today. And you will get an email pointing you in the right direction so you can review the materials and also share that with your colleagues and others that might be interested in the topic. And at the very end, when we close everything out, there will be a webinar satisfaction poll, and we'd certainly appreciate you taking 5 minutes or less to answer those few questions, give us feedback, and help us improve this webinar series as we go forward. So, no further ado, I want to introduce Leila Toplik. She is with NetHope, and she is driving our No Loss Generation Tech Task Force initiative. So Leila, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Frederick. Good morning or good afternoon. I know it's bright and early for those who are on the West Coast, and it's the end of the day for many of you who are based in Amman and Beirut and other parts of the world. So thank you again for joining us. And as Frederick noted, we'll make sure to have a great discussion with our in-studio audience later in the webinar, and to share this broadly with our community. So one of the things that I wanted to do before we start with a project, with a feature presentation, is to give you a brief update on the NLG Tech Summit. On February 21st and 22nd, the No Loss Generation Initiative hosted our second annual summit in Amman, Jordan. Attendees included about 200 representatives of the UN agencies, global and local NGOs, private sector companies, academic institutions, donors, and also conflict-affected youth. And the summit was focused on the youth and adolescents pillar of NLG, and specifically highlighting several key challenges that are faced by young people that are displaced by the conflict and vulnerable young people living in the communities that are hosting them. And these challenges included, as you can see on the slide, education, employment, participation, and protection. The highlight for me was really hearing directly from youth. Each challenge, so for example, education, was framed by them in their own words. So that was incredibly powerful, but also very informative in terms of helping us understand better the context in which they live. As Frederick is sharing in the chat window, the slides are available on the Summit website, and the team is also working on a video that we'll make sure to share it with you. In terms of the recap of what I heard at the Summit, and also during the visits to Mercy Corps' partner Attar in Recefa in Jordan, and NRC's program in Zatri Camp, and UNICEF's Innovation Lab in Beirut. There are just a couple of things that I wanted to highlight on this call, but really invite you to review the blog post that Lindsay from Pluralsight, our private sector partner, and I published last week. So really just emphasizing some of the urgent needs that young Syrian refugees have, including access to education, but especially skills training in in-demand and soft skills, access to meaningful livelihood opportunities, and that includes not only the jobs in the host communities, but also really expanding economic opportunities to include remote work, impact sourcing, and entrepreneurship, as well as opportunities for engagement in their local communities and around the world, and we'll speak to that point a little bit later in this session, and then ways to promote and protect their rights. So now, to meet those needs and also to design the solutions that are viable and they're relevant and sustainable, which is something that we're focusing on with the task force, it's super important to understand the context in which the youth live. So again, a lot more detail available in the blog post. I'll highlight a couple of things that are important, especially for our private sector partners and academic institutions that are working very closely with us to design the solutions. So Arabic is the first and oftentimes the only language for the majority of the affected youth in the region, which is critical as we're thinking about the learning resources and the learning platforms. Connectivity is a major issue, both from a legal and infrastructural standpoint, so even where it's available, it's not reliable. Oftentimes, most refugees live outside of the camps and sometimes away from the critical services, including access to education or employment. As I mentioned, employment opportunities in the region are limited, so we're really looking at the ways we can expand those economic opportunities, and private sector, startup community, as well as technology can play a role in making that possible. And speaking of technology, something to just really keep in mind is that digital literacy is low among the most vulnerable youth. So as we're thinking about onboarding them to the solutions that we're developing, it's really important to work with the humanitarian organizations and the local community-based organizations. And lastly, cultural norms are quite strong and represent real barriers for young women and girls in certain instances to access educational and economic opportunities. So something to keep in mind, but also to be thinking about what role can technology play in opening up those opportunities to be inclusive, to include young women and girls, as well as children with disabilities. So as mentioned, a lot more information is available in the blog post, and this is the first blog post in the series that we'll be publishing for the task force. So at the summit, I had the opportunity to provide an update on the task force work. What you're seeing on in this slide is just a snapshot of the kind of the first phase of engagement that's underway, where we're building a cross-sector community through information exchange on existing programs and tech solutions and sharing out the past and current efforts. So for example, webinars like this one, as well as initiating new collaborations in order to achieve actually greater reach and impact and deliver solutions for those challenges that I just talked about. And I'll speak to the project-based collaborations more in a minute. If you're new to the task force, there are a number of ways you can benefit from this vibrant community, including accessing the resources through the webinars that were hosted over the past year. Frederick will share the link to the website. So there are some really excellent programs and solutions that are available to all of you that you can learn from. And I also invite you to reach out and let us know if there are programs and solutions that you'd like to share with the community. Now, in order to really frame the conversation that we'll be having about this specific, the featured presentation and the project that Mercy Corps and Adobe have worked on over the past 2 months, I wanted to give you just some insight into how we're thinking about these NLG Tech Task Force projects. And more detail will be available in the blog post that we'll be publishing tomorrow. So what are these projects about? They're designed to be multi-sector, to be tech-enabled. So there is a role that technology plays in each one of those projects. It's not the solution. It's a component. It's a tool in our toolbox in designing these solutions to challenges around education, employment, participation, and protection. They're meant to be evidence-based, and they're co-created by humanitarian and private sector organizations such as Mercy Corps and Adobe, and with conflict-affected youth. Just a bit of a background on the, and I won't go into all of the details that you're seeing on these slides. You'll have access to the links. In September last year, NLG Tech Task Force brought together private and humanitarian sector stakeholders at the NLG Silicon Valley Symposium in San Francisco to do one thing, which is to collaborate on addressing 4 challenges that conflict-affected youth face. These challenges that you're seeing on this slide, and there is a longer PDF document available to you. So these challenges were researched and formulated by the humanitarian organizations and impacted youth. And they were also brought to life through videos produced by youth. In addition to having kind of a deeper understanding of what the challenges are or what problems we want to solve, we put together an engagement framework in order to really activate all possible and available resources, cross-sector and expertise, and also to work towards a collective impact. So what does that mean? Specific to our private sector partners and academic institutions, so for businesses, they can activate 3 key types of engagement in support of children and youth that are affected by the refugee crisis. So in addition to corporate social responsibility and philanthropy, which is cash grants, product donations, employee volunteering, there are 2 other ways that are important ways private sector can contribute to supporting the needs of conflict-affected youth. One is around business operations and product development. A couple of examples of what that means. So that could mean hiring practices, hiring refugees. It could mean developing new product that is actually meeting a very specific and unique need that refugees have and their context. And we'll talk about such projects more in the future. And then it could also mean adapting the current initiatives and programs in order to meet the specific needs that conflict-affected youth have. And then the last part is around advocacy and public policy engagement. More is available in the NLG Private Sector Engagement Guide, which Frederick is sharing in the chat window. And then I think for the humanitarian agencies in terms of the engagement, it means that each participating humanitarian agency, like Mercy Corps, is incubating for and sharing with all of NLG partner agencies, so that's about 30 organizations. So how is this different from what's typically done? I think Amy, who's on this call, summarized it really well at the summit when she said, this is the first time I'm incubating a program that will benefit all NLG partner organizations, not just Mercy Corps. And Amy can speak to that in more detail. So with the problem we want to solve in mind, and with the the scope of possible engagement in mind, here's just quickly what the outcomes, what we're working on, and what the process is. So there are 4 projects that were initiated at the NLG Silicon Valley Symposium. Each of these projects are being managed by the NLG Tech Task Force. Humanitarian sector and private sector representatives are co-creating together and with the youth. We're leveraging lean startup methodology and design thinking, including lean canvas and user journey. For those of you who are not familiar with these concepts, I've just included a bit more information about what this means and what they are in the blog post that we'll include in the recap of this webinar. And we're also developing a minimum viable product, and you'll hear about one of them today as quickly as possible in order to meet the urgent and ongoing needs of displaced youth. We are committed to sharing work in progress. So we started at the NLG Tech Summit. This webinar is part of that, sharing what we're doing, what we're learning. And as noted earlier, our goal is to scale through all NLG partner organizations when ready, and also more broadly. So this program that we'll be talking about today is available globally. And then lastly, before we jump into the feature presentation, is just a snapshot of the 4 projects. Each aligns with at least one of the challenges that I shared on the earlier slides that displaced youth and adolescents face. We have organizations like Mercy Corps and UNICEF and Norwegian Refugee Council incubating on behalf of all of NLG. And then we have companies like Adobe, and specifically Adobe Project 1324, Microsoft, Salesforce, and Pluralsight One supporting the work and co-creating directly with the humanitarian organizations. So the first MVP was delivered at the NLG Tech Summit in Amman. Amy and Catherine will speak to that in more detail. Other MVPs, just quickly, are on track to be available to a select number of end users later this spring, so we can learn, test and learn and iterate, and ultimately make these programs and solutions available to all of you. So now I am so thrilled to have Amy and Catherine on the call today to really share with you the great work that they did to put together a program that's addressing a very specific challenge, one of the 4 challenges, and co-created it together with youth, and also are now sharing it with all of you and your communities globally. I'll turn it over to Amy, and Amy, I will click through your first part of the slides.
Thank you, Layla. Hello, everybody. I'm Amy Wells. I'm the Regional Adolescence and Youth Advisor for Mercy Corps. I'll just do a quick introduction to Mercy Corps for those of you who aren't familiar. We're one, as Layla has pointed out, one of the many organizations that are benefiting from the NLG Task Force. Apologies if my voice is off. I've been a little sick, so hopefully you can hear me clearly. Mercy Corps works in over 40 countries around the globe, and I think and hope that this product and this solution is something that will travel beyond just the Middle East. And as an agency, we have a significant focus on adolescents and youth. It's one of our main pillars, among other things that we do, but one of the main pillars of our work. So this opportunity was very strategic and a really great opportunity to work with Adobe and a private sector partner and platform to be able to raise the voices of youth. So you already see the problem sitting in front of you there. You know, all of the literature, all of the research is continually reminding us that young people, particularly young people that are affected by conflict, don't have opportunities to participate. They don't have opportunities to participate in governance structures. They don't have opportunities to talk to their peers. They're isolated. And so what are the platforms available that we could use to support that participation? And then whenever you look at conflict-affected youth, you always think about the lack of access to quality training and resources alongside of that. So these 2 things came together with participation as the overarching problem that we wanted to solve. And yeah, and now solution. Thanks, Layla. So we took the Adobe Challenge is a platform that has brought together a space to allow young people to participate, share their stories, collaborate with their peers, and learn new skills. So this platform itself was our way of creating a framework, a place where young people could go, and the challenge and the way it's framed, which we'll talk about in a bit, is to elevate their voice, and it's a voice that's so frequently denied space. So that's our solution. I don't want to go too much into the details because I'm going to let Catherine go into what it looks like and what it feels like. We've spent the last week, I guess 2 weeks ago now, when was the summit, watching these young people showcase their different projects and products. And this solution, we spent time talking to young people about how and what they would want to connect around. What would they want to talk about? What would the things they want to exchange? And the way we've focused and framed the challenge comes from youth. They've told us that they wanted to talk about their identity, the depth of their identity, the depth of their presence. And so the challenge takes that into mind. Just want to go over to Catherine to talk about there we go.
Great. Thanks, Amy, and hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Apologies for the formatting on this slide, but I'll be talking through it, so hopefully it becomes quite clear. I'll first begin by sharing a bit of background about Project 1324. I'll move through that relatively quickly to then jump into the specifics of this project once that context is set. So Adobe Project 1324 is an Adobe initiative. It works with youth aged 13 to 24, which is how it derives its name. Project 1324 supports, connects, and amplifies a global community of emerging artists who are using creativity as a force for positive impact. We do this in a number of ways, and one is through our digital platform, project1324.com. I encourage you to check it out by the end of this webinar, though I'll be doing a quick demo as well. Project 1324 partners with organizations like Mercy Corps who are working directly with youth in order to take the creative work of these youth into a digital space and to amplify that work to a global community of emerging creatives and organizations that are actively using their art for positive impact. One of the features of this platform is the ability of partners like Mercy Corps and NLG to host what we call challenges. The challenge is a creative prompt that invites emerging creatives from the Project 1324 community to either learn new skills, take part in collective action, or push the boundaries of their creativity. Emerging creatives can join a challenge by uploading their own original artwork to the challenge page in response to a specific prompt. At any given time, we have multiple prompts on the platform that cover these different areas of learning new skills, participating with others in collective action, just being creative and sharing their stories. On the collective action and impact front, we've had challenges that focus on specific issue areas such as climate action or justice. We have an upcoming challenge focused on mental health going live next week in the lead up to Mental Health Month in May. And for us, it's just really important to partner with organizations like those within the NLG Task Force that are experts in the field on the topics that they're working on, so that these challenges are really relevant for the youth that are responding to them. Each of these challenges is tied to an opportunity. This could be a free subscription to Adobe's Creative Cloud for a year. Participants in the Sundance Ignite Challenge submit short films for the opportunity to win a one-year Sundance Ignite Fellowship. And so we'll be going through the opportunity around World Refugee Day as part of the challenge that we're working on with Mercy Corps. So with that backdrop, I'm excited to share the details of Defined Without Borders that both Layla and Amy teased through their presentation. So this challenge was launched on the platform on February 21st, and it'll be live through June 1st. Defined Without Borders is an online challenge which Mercy Corps designed as a co-lead of the NLG initiative with the support of the Tech Task Force. Defined Without Borders focuses on this issue of participation that Amy spoke of, and it asks youth, how do you define yourself? So it's really focused on the breadth of identity and how these youth think of their identity. And it proactively supports conflict-affected youth to share their stories and really empower them to use their voice. Youth aged 13 to 24 can submit their projects directly on the platform anytime until that June 1st deadline. And I want to highlight that you can see one example of a project submitted to the challenge on this slide with the title, No Limits to Your Ideas. But with that, I'll do a quick demo. So the link to the challenge page is on this slide, and I hope you'll visit it when the webinar ends to explore it on your own. But it'll take you directly to the Project 1324 challenge. I'll start by going to the home page. So when you go to Project 1324, you'll see this homepage. It shows a number of different pieces of information, including a featured impact of the day that could come from any of the challenges that are live on the platform, or it could come from a project that's been submitted outside of a challenge to somebody's personal profile. You can find the challenges in this upper bar, and you can either search for it or as a featured challenge right now. It's quite easy to find, so Defined Without Borders. You can visit these pages without logging in, though when I show the component of appreciating or commenting on the work, you do need to be logged in with a free Adobe ID that you can create directly through the web page. By clicking through this Defined Without Borders challenge page, you can read the challenge prompt. It's really exciting to have worked on this prompt with Layla and the NLG Task Force, but also with Mercy Corps and directly with Mercy Corps' community colleagues based in their communities, so that we had the voice of youth and influencing this prompt. So this prompt is about the concept that the world defines us often by the borders in which we live or the place that we come from, but that's really only a small part of who we are and how we think about our identity. And so we asked youth what experiences from their past and present shape who they are and how they express themselves. What are the things that make up who you are and who you aspire to be? Then Arabic translation is also available here. As Layla mentioned, having Arabic version is very important right now, given the language barriers that some of these youth might face in working with an English-only challenge. So that full creative brief is available in Arabic directly from the challenge page. And they can join this challenge by submitting projects. We've had almost 1,000 views of the project so far, just in the 2 weeks since this has been launched. You can see these different featured projects below. When you click on one of these projects, you're taken to a bit of an artist's statement about that project and why they submitted it. You can learn about that artist or young person by clicking on their profile. And then importantly, you can appreciate this comment. So by appreciating it, we ask you to not just like it, but also to share what it is that you appreciated about it. Did it inspire you? Did it shift your perspective? Did it teach you something? Or did it move you to take action? The community of Project 1324 is really interested, we found through our discussions with this community, in having an impact with their work. And so understanding what it is that people who view their work appreciated about it is really important to this young audience. You can also comment on that project if you want to share thoughts or feedback. Community moderation and a safe community space is one of Project 1324's core commitments to working with youth aged 13 to 24. So these comments are moderated, including if they're in Arabic, really quickly. The other thing I want to share is that within the challenge page, you can see who's hosting each of the challenges. So NLG has its own organizational profile page. And if you're interested in creating an organizational profile and hosting a follow-on challenge, please do reach out to me so that we can get you set up. Within this, you can see all the current challenges, upcoming and past, but also just a bit about the work so that those joining that are not familiar with NLG or with Mercy Corps can quickly find out and be taken to those organizations' web pages. And then because Mercy Corps helps design this challenge and was so crucial to it, but isn't the official host, we also have the Mercy Corps organizational profile page on here so that those who are joining that are not already working with Mercy Corps can learn about Mercy Corps' work. So as I mentioned, the Project 1324 platform primarily serves youth aged 13 to 24, and so this challenge is open to all global youth. But important to note is that specific to this challenge, we're targeting conflict-affected young people to make sure that they're aware of this opportunity to share their story, convey the many facets of their identity that are those youth living in the NLG countries of Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, and other countries in the region. So if you're working with youth outside the region who want to share their voice story, of course they're welcome to join the challenge and submit projects, but to the extent that you're working with youth in the region, please do encourage them to participate. Before moving on, I want to call out this submission from Nadim that's on the right-hand portion of this slide. According to Nadim, in the narrative submitted with this project, this circle represents what's accepted by society and Arab culture and the pressure to live inside this circle. So it's been encouraging for me with all of the projects that have been submitted to really see how differently each artist interpreted the brief in their own way, really getting at the core of this identity challenge. And I'll end it with 4 ways to get involved in this work, and I hope at least one of these applies to everyone who's joined this webinar today. So first, NGOs are encouraged to invite the youth you work with to participate in the challenge by submitting projects. This challenge is free to join, it's free to create an Adobe ID, it's relatively simple to navigate to this platform, learn more about how to submit a project. All skills are welcome, and because it's any kind of image, it could be an unedited photograph or a really complex graphic design, so it's open to all skills. NGOs can also set up an organizational profile page if you're interested in hosting your own follow-on challenge on Project 1324. So if you have ideas for challenges or would like to set up an organizational profile, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. And everybody who joined today can appreciate and comment on young people's projects and share via social media. I think one of the things we've found is how excited these youth are to be on the global stage and sharing their work with audiences beyond their immediate local community. So to the extent that you have time to log on to this platform and take a look at these really amazing projects, I'm sure that these youth will appreciate it. So even if you're not working directly, you can help us spread the word and get more people involved. And finally, and importantly, please join us in marking this year's World Refugee Day on June 20th. One of the opportunities that we listed in this specific challenge for youth is the opportunity for their work to be used as part of the World Refugee Day messaging that a number of organizations are doing. So reach out to us if you're interested in displaying or sharing the projects that you see on the Defined Without Borders challenge, whether it's at your office, your campus, other ideas you have of where this work might reach other eyes, because we really want to find as many ways as possible to amplify this work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Layla, but looks like a number of great questions are coming in, so looking forward to digging into those momentarily.
Great. Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you, Amy. Loving these questions that are coming through. Please actually keep posting the questions in the chat window. So Frederick and I will moderate the Q&A and do our best to also group some of these questions together. So there was a question about the next symposium, NLG Silicon Valley Symposium. We are evaluating kind of the opportunity to do another symposium this year, and probably in the same location and at the end of the summer, right before the UNGA. We'll definitely let you know, and if you do sign up for the task force, you'll be the first one to know if we are hosting the symposium and what the opportunities are for you to participate. Another quick question that is, again, related to plugging into the NLG Tech Task Force before we go into the project-specific questions. If you sign up for the task force, you will again get access to information about the resources, opportunities to collaborate, and also solutions and projects and programs that are available to you to either learn from or to replicate in your work. So hopefully that answers some of the key questions about the task force. Now let's jump into some just really fantastic questions about the about Project 1324, Defined Without Borders. So the first question is, or a set of questions is around digital skills and digital literacy. As noted earlier in the presentation, digital literacy is a challenge for a number of youth in the region. So there is a question here around how are we leaving a considerable portion of youth out of participating because they don't have the skills in order to participate in this challenge, and what specifically is being done to help them on board and get access to this and similar opportunities. So I'll turn it over to Amy to speak a little bit to some of the work that I know Mercy Corps is doing with community-based organizations in countries like Jordan, and I'm also happy to add a few additional thoughts on other work.
Whoever asked this question, I asked the same one, and we asked the same one quite a lot when we were thinking about this participation challenge. And I mean, the first point is that we're not going to reach every single young person, and there will be a lot of young people that we're not able to reach. But that being said, the reason I think this challenge was effective is because Adobe had an existing platform, and a lot of organizations are doing a lot of work with young people around digital literacy. And I mean, at various different levels. Digital literacy can mean a lot of different skill sets. So in order for us to take on a challenge like this and for NLG partners to use it, we have to make sure that technology is available and that youth have the skills, and more even than the skills, the mentors to help them access the platform. And so for in our case, Mercy Corps has community-based youth centers in Jordan, Lebanon, and Iraq. And then a lot of different partners, NRC, SAVE, also have these different centers. And so using those centers where there's computers, ensuring that they have Adobe at those centers so they can learn that level of skill, but also ensuring that the platform accepts a basic picture that you can take on a phone. So making it accessible at, I don't want to say a low level of literacy, but you don't need to be able to manage an Adobe product. You can take an image of something that's meaningful to you, and you can upload it to this platform. So we have to make sure that the platforms are there. I mean, our centers bus youth to and from. A lot of centers provide the transportation to the space, but then making that space moderated and managed by a coach. One of the projects, actually all of the projects so far, we've worked very closely. Coaches have worked with youth to help them upload those projects and to even log into the site and things like that. So there's a big step in responsibility on the INGO side to make the platform accessible.
Yeah, so it's an excellent point, Amy, and there are a couple of lessons learned in this process. One is, or lessons in terms of the co-design. It is important. One of the things that we didn't share in early on when talking about the projects, one of the things that we did early on in the process is to map out a whole user journey and to really have a robust way of looking at how does a young person go from basic awareness about this opportunity to being able to participate actively in this opportunity. And that's where, as Amy highlighted, the importance of having the community-based organizations, mentors, and volunteers that can actually help with the onboarding, having the infrastructure like computer labs where young people can come in and both learn the skills but also participate in the challenge, because that's where they have connectivity and access to a platform like this, and then also opportunity for them to interact with the other youth in their community. So one of the kind of key aspects of co-designing such program, and we're doing the same on other projects, is really mapping out not only starting with the problem that we're trying to solve, but really mapping out how do we ensure that our core target audience, and as mentioned, it is conflict-affected youth, and we're trying to reach some of the most vulnerable youth. How do they actually benefit from this, and what needs to be in place for a program like this to be successful? And it's oftentimes existing programs that organizations like Mercy Corps and their community-based organizations, or organizations like NRC in Zatre Camp, or UNICEF in their innovation lab in Beirut, already have, that this type of opportunity can plug into. So it's a fantastic question, and something that we're constantly thinking about, and also if there are any other best practices from around the world, we love hearing about those and learning from those. Catherine, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, or if we should jump to the next question.
I would just piggyback on what both you and Amy shared, in that the sort of specific digital platform component of this was designed to be quite user-friendly. We've done a lot of user research to make sure that the platform is intuitive, and we're actively making changes based on metrics we have on how users navigate through the platform, where they click and don't click, to make sure that even for those users that are completely new to project1324.com and that may not speak English, that it's quite intuitive to navigate to the place that they're trying to get to. And with that, on the sort of question that is related to that, on whether this leaves out some youth, I think one of the things that we've found is that while digital literacy may be low, it's something that these youth do want to develop. And so making a user-friendly way for them to engage with this, even just submitting a photograph that they've taken on their phone, or that they've used at a sort of a community center, taken an image and submit it through the Adobe Creative Cloud products that we have there. Like, we've tried to make it as user-friendly as a sort of on-ramp to expanding their digital literacy in the creative space.
Yeah, excellent point, Catherine. And what we heard also from youth is that having a program like this is a motivator to learn specific skills. So whether it's digital literacy skills or English. So to give you an example, the young people whose projects you're currently seeing on the page, many of them don't speak very good English, but they wanted, in order to connect with the peers globally, they wanted to express themselves, therefore provide a description of their project both in Arabic and English. So it's, again, opportunities like these are motivators to learn these skills and provide meaning to why they should be learning those skills. So now switching to kind of the next important topic, which is around measuring impact, and I'll turn it over to Catherine to speak to kind of just how Adobe Project 1324 is measuring impact, and Amy to comment on this kind of the problem around participation and how the humanitarian sector is looking at the impact.
Thanks, Leila. Yeah, I'll be brief on this. Project 1324 has thought a lot about the impact of this platform. I failed to mention at the beginning that this initiative is born out of Adobe's Sustainability and Social Impact Group. So making sure that this product is effective in supporting, connecting, and amplifying the stories of these youth is really important, and we want to be able to measure that. Impact right now is being looked at across several fronts. First, around access. So making sure that we're tracking the number of users, the number of projects, but with an eye towards access, to make sure that it isn't just the most affluent youth who are able to access this platform, but using product donations and collaborations such as this one to make sure that the users on this platform and the projects being submitted are diverse in terms of the geography that they're coming from and the types of youth that are participating. And then on the collective impact front, most of these youth do want to have an impact with their work. So we're looking at the number of views on these projects and how they're appreciated and tracking those metrics really carefully. But really importantly, we're looking at the amplification off the platform. So while it's really valuable for us to be building this community on Project 1324 and helping these youth connect with one another and appreciate one another's work, it's really crucial to us that we find ways for this work to reach audiences off the platform. It's one of the reasons why this challenge is designed as a lead-up to World Refugee Day. Many of our challenges have some sort of physical installation component so that the stories of these youth can reach audiences on and offline.
Amy, did you want to add anything else?
Well, I think it goes kind of back to the initial question when you look at participation in the regional context and with young people. So I think our role in terms of getting them to be able to access this platform, to that even that first step, is that we have to be looking at inclusion of vulnerable groups. So making sure that the programs that we run are making sure that we have boys and young girls, we have out-of-school youth. I mean, it needs to be an inclusive and intentional process for outreach, which means that it needs to have entry levels from a very entry skill set level for youth up that ladder. And then participation is establishing those linkages. Some of the youth that even participated in this challenge so far were able to come to this event and even network with these private sector actors. But, programming participation looks different at different levels. And then participation in terms of influence. So where do youth have influence? And I think coming back to what Catherine said is how do we promote the images of these youth, and well, I guess we'll talk about that. I think it's another question, to promote and elevate their voice. So where are they able to influence with all of this work and identity that they've shared and reflected on?
Yeah, and just to note, since we are on this slide here in the presentation, all of you can be part of actually the success of this program, or what is success to the young people. They want their voices to be heard all over the world. So if you are a private sector company or academic institution or a cultural organization and would like to participate and help us, again, amplify the voices of the young people on this World Refugee Day, you have the opportunity to bring these projects onto your campuses, into your organizations, both through either digital displays of these projects and the storytelling around that, or even printed posters of the project. So do join us in again, amplifying the voices. So just actually speaking to that point around, expanding the participation, Mercy Corps is one of the NLG partner agencies that has incubated this project on behalf of NLG. Amy, can you speak to how other orgs and NLG partners are using Project 1324 in their programming, and how are youth being introduced to this opportunity more broadly?
That's a good question. I know how we're doing it, and it was obviously launched at the NLG Tech Summit and has been distributed and shared through all of the No Lost Generation communications. So as I've said before, I think that the platform itself needs to be introduced in the context of existing work. So for example, we have our community centers, we have access to technology, computers, we have an infrastructure of coaches, and we have trained and will train our coaches so they can introduce this platform and this project to interested youth. It's an option for them to participate. And then, of course, flyers and those youth that want to take it on their own. But in terms of how other NLG partners will pick up the project or the challenge, I think that that's what we're here to promote and discover today, and maybe even what else would you need to be able to pick it up that we haven't given you in this presentation or you know, further follow-on. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a question back to the audience of what else might you need.
Yeah, and to that point, we will be sharing an FAQ with a lot more information about this this opportunity in the webinar recap email. And Amy, you're spot on. We invite all of you to tell us if you need anything else in order to get your youth involved. As Catherine noted, this is open to global youth too, as well as conflict-affected youth, or to get your organizations involved in amplifying these voices. Frederick, I know that you've also been collecting a number of questions that have come in. What's the next question?
Yeah, I'm sitting here itching to go get down on the list of all these great questions. No, there were a couple of questions I thought would be interesting in combining. The one was fairly simple in terms of, you know, we're early in the process here. You're going from end of February to June 1st, but what's the current level of participation of youth projects so far? And we talked a lot about, you know, how to engage, but how do you continue to engage the youth? You know, maybe once they have submitted their first project, is there a way of kind of reinforcing and continued use of the platform?
Layla, do you want me to take this one?
Go for it.
Great. So in terms of the current level of engagement, I'd note one of the reasons this challenge is the length that it is going through June 1st is because Mercy Corps found in working with the youth in these countries that they wanted more time to be able to really learn new skills, play around with some of the Adobe creative tools to develop projects that they maybe could not have developed a month ago. So we have a few really great projects on the platform and would encourage you to check them out. But I think with this specific challenge, we wanted to make sure that we, one, gave youth a slightly longer time frame to participate. So we expect to see an uptick in May as a result, and then also get the challenge live so we could share with the other NLG partners and give them plenty of time to get the youth that they work with involved. So we're really just in the ramp-up period right now. And then in terms of how we continue to engage, I'll speak from the Project 1324 perspective. One of the things that we're really committed to doing is working with, continuing to work with NLG Task Force members on ongoing challenges to make sure that there's relevant creative prompts on the challenge for youth on an ongoing basis, but also outside of the NLG Task Force, continuing to ramp up our relationships with other partners to make sure that as youth revisit the Project 1324 platform, they continue to find reasons to tell their stories and also come back to learn new skills and just to have fun. Adobe Project 1324 is in public beta right now with a launch, a full launch in a few months. And as part of that, I think it's just really important for us to continue to create relevant creative briefs for these youth. And then the final piece on how we continue to engage them, I think to the extent that they feel like this challenge is actually elevating their voice and that this content is being amplified, I think they'll find reasons to come back in ways that they won't if we're not successful in having them feel like this work is amplified, whether it's on World Refugee Day or locally in their communities.
Great. That's super helpful, Catherine. Amy, did you want to add anything else, or do we want to jump into the next question?
Let me really quickly. Again, I think that this is a challenge that should be layered into our work. So, you know, youth participation is a much bigger and broader issue, and this is one of the ways for us to amplify youth voice. So, again, thinking about your contextual programming and where and how this can fit, and this is something that you can take home to your program and introduce it And then I kind of asking about other ways for youth to participate. It reminds me, as we were walking out of the room in one of the centers, Malik, one of the young men who created actually the photo that you saw with the matches, had his picture. This is not what you should do, okay? I'm just telling you something that was amazing. He had his picture on 7 or 8 computers in the room, his photo that he had, and he was liking it or appreciating it. So appreciation, ongoing appreciation, and engagement. But the point there is that there's a lot of incentive and desire to get your work up there, and then to have it appreciated, to have it viewed, shared. There's different things you can appreciate about it, and I think in the way that we introduce this challenge, that's a really important part of the framing.
It's a great story, and the amount of energy and the amount of excitement that we saw among that small group of young people was just incredible, and a testament to how important programs like this one are. And actually, to that point, there's a kind of set of questions around do we envision using these projects or elevating these projects to have impact at multiple levels? So within their own communities, among the local decision makers, policy makers, or informing aid programming and design, will these projects be used to guide policy advocacy? So, Amy, do you have any thoughts on kind of this set of questions?
There's always a policy space and need. So, for example, the upcoming Brussels conference, we're supposed to be gathering youth voice and youth perspectives to be showcasing, hopefully, at Brussels. And we're constantly looking for organizations to surface content, and this is a great example of something that could be curated and showcased, the importance of youth voice and participation and identity. There could be a challenge built around particular advocacy needs or asks that young people have. So I think that we didn't design this piece as an advocacy call, but it certainly could be a really powerful platform for that. And under the NLG banner, it will be something that we will, as a co-lead for NLG, use as a way to showcase youth voice and perspective.
Absolutely, and you'll see our contact information on this slide. We invite all of you, if you have ideas or opportunities for such work around policy, to reach out to us, and we can collaborate on that together. Frederick, I know we're almost out of time. Is there one last question that you think we should ask?
Yeah, I think it was really a simple one, and that was all these submissions. Are the submissions actually reviewed by you or some kind of committee before they're being posted?
I can tackle that one quickly. They're not reviewed by a committee. Everyone can participate, and it's not sort of a best person gets to submit and the certain projects don't get to submit. That said, there is curation on the platform to make sure that this is a safe space, particularly because we have youth as young as 13 participating in this. So while these projects can be submitted by anyone, they're curated very quickly. We have 24/7 moderation of the content going up there, of both the projects and the comments.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Oh, I guess we agree, Leila. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank Amy and Catherine for obviously their great work on this MVP, and we'll continue to measure, learn, and iterate. And to all of you for your questions, and we're looking for, again, more suggestions for amplifying this work, making sure that the young people between now and June 1st are aware of this program, this opportunity, and get a chance to participate. And for those of you who would like to join us on the World Refugee Day and amplifying their voices, feel free to reach out to me, and we can explore what the opportunities are. So again, thank you to Amy and Catherine, and Frederick, over to you for the closing remarks.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, Leila, for putting on this series of webinars. It's so educational and so important work. So I want to also thank Amy and Catherine, and also thank the audience for excellent engagement here. These were some great questions, and we'll make sure that the recording and all the presentation materials are posted, and we'll get the link out to everyone later on today. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and we will be together again soon on the next set of webinars. Take care. Bye-bye now.